Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. The idiots at the SEC have harmed themselves yet again. These people are just imbeciles. And, it's not just that. They're also so arrogant. They are so tremendously arrogant that they think that they can trick judges into believing the nonsense bunk that they're putting out. But it's not going so well for them. And so the SEC most recently made a gigantic mistake in even requesting an interlocutory appeal in the SEC v. Ripple case, and I'll assume that pretty much all of you right now are well aware, since this is news from like a week ago, that didn't go so well for them. But there are going to be broader implications as a result of this. Don't forget that there's another crypto lawsuit of tremendous consequence, and arguably more important than what happened in the SEC v. Ripple case. The attorney Deaton has articulated reasons as to why, and it seems like a pretty reasonable argument. Even though I care about XRP more than any other individual cryptocurrency, I'll certainly see the point that if you can destroy the on-ramps and off-ramps for crypto in the United States, you don't even need necessarily to go after individual cryptocurrency. So I understand the argument there. But that's still going down, and as it turns out, perhaps what's most probable, seems like a virtual certainty to me personally anyway, is that because of what the SEC has done, they have made it less likely that they are going to be victorious in their lawsuit against Coinbase, because specifically what they did in the Ripple case. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I've also got an update for you on the scam bankman fraud saga. My God, that guy's going to get 30 years to life. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised anyway. I mean, hopefully he's going to be in jail the rest of his life, but I would be surprised if once this is all said and done, he doesn't at least get a number of decades here. But, the court proceedings ongoing. This whole thing's supposed to last, it's estimated, 4 to 6 weeks. And I do not believe for a second it's going to go well for him. But there have been some very interesting news breaking on this topic. And one of the things that just made me chuckle a bit is finding out that scam bankman fraud wanted to be president of the United States and thought that he actually might be at some point in the future. Kid you not. But anyway, before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so here's a post from yesterday from XRP community member Ashley Prosper, who I think absolutely hit the nail on the head with this, and wrote the following. Because this is all intertwined, and it's all of extreme consequence to all of us. And yes, we here in the XRP community, we're sitting pretty. We are light years ahead of, many others within the broader world of crypto, just in the sense that since we're XRP holders, there is no question as to the legal status of our cryptocurrency. But for others, a lot of question marks, which I'm not thrilled about either, to be honest with you, because I hold close to 30 different cryptocurrencies, and the SEC's attacking a number of other coins that I hold. Now, I don't think it's going to go well for them. I'm very optimistic for the future, but still, given that's the case, I love seeing the SEC make unforced errors. So here's what Ashley Prosper wrote. The SEC made a huge mistake in asking for an interlocutory appeal in the Ripple case. Not only did it torpedo itself in that case, but I suspect Coinbase, Paul Graywall, and Brian Armstrong will be using the ruling to combat many of the SEC's objections to a judgment on the pleadings, including the one below. I have a feeling the Torres ruling is going to be used for many years to come. Here, the SEC fails to prove that purchasers were aware of a token issuer's existence and instead basically asks the court to assume it's true. And so, folks, right there, what what's being referenced is obviously Ripple. The SEC did not prove that that's what purchasers were aware of. They asserted it. You may recall they had an expert witness, which Judge Torres ended up throwing out. There's this assertion that Ripple's the reason that everybody's buying XRP, but there was literally no proof, and the expert in question never asked a single XRP holder, this is admitted as being the case, never asked a single XRP holder why they purchased XRP. Just had these wild assertions as to why that was the case. So the SEC failed to prove that, and that's what's being cited right there. And then Ashley Prosper says, this didn't fly for Judge Torres, who made it clear the SEC had failed to meet its burden on several fronts. If Judge Faya, I'm not sure, is it Faya? I can't remember how to pronounce that one out. But anyway, the judge takes the same position as Judge Torres. The Coinbase case should be over within 6 months. And folks, if you've been watching the tone, and I've been reporting on this as time has passed, if you've been watching the tone and the questions of the judge, it's the same scorn that we saw at times from both judges in the SEC v. Ripple case. You can tell that the judges just aren't falling for it, and that's why I was saying at the outset of the video, it's the ego, and it's just the audacity that's set forth because of the tremendous ego of these absolute pricks, these little hell spawns. And so, as it turns out, as disgusting as these creatures are, they're damaging their own case. If they weren't so outrageous, they'd actually have a better chance. Now, not that they're on the wrong side of history no matter what. I'm just saying they're making unforced errors here that they didn't need to make. And so, with this interlocutory appeal being denied, which was, it's like, duh, do you think Judge Torres is actually going to... She just took that as an opportunity to double and triple down on previous points that she made, just strengthening the case. And all of this can be used and cited in the Coinbase case. Absolutely. And so take a look at this headline from the Daily Hodl. SEC says crypto assets have no inherent value in new court motion against Coinbase. And I'm going to try and be brief with this portion of the video, but I just want to make a broad point on this. It's one of the same bogus nonsense BS arguments that the SEC was making in the Ripple case. They're arguing something that has no implication in terms of whether or not a transaction is part of an illegal investment contract, whether or not something is a securities transaction. And what they're talking about here is whether or not something has inherent value. That is not part of the Howey test, you imbeciles. How stupid could you possibly be? But they think that they can trick the judge. They have to know it's not a good argument, but they can't help themselves. And it already failed in the Ripple case, and they're still arguing it here too. My God, what is wrong with these people? Piece reads as follows. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has stated that digital assets have no inherent value. In a court motion filed last week against Coinbase, the top U.S. crypto exchange by volume, the regulatory agency says that digital assets have no real value as they cannot generate profits on their own. So I'll just pause to note this, and this would be, I'm not going to go into great detail on this because it would be too far outside the scope of this video. I don't believe that there's any sort of inherent or intrinsic value in crypto either. I think if something is valuable, people use it, but it's rather subjective. It's not by the nature of existing, it suddenly is valuable, so there's nothing intrinsic there. But the same is true for the other things that they cite, whether you're talking about chinchillas or whiskey. These have all been, parts of illegal securities transactions in the past. Yes, chinchillas and whiskey and oranges, right? But as far as whether or not those are useful, it's subjective, not objective. And it's subjective because it's opinion-based. Not everybody is going to find a freaking chinchilla useful. I don't find a chinchilla useful. Do you? Does it have inherent value to you? What if there were no humans on the planet? Would it still have inherent value? Like, what does that even mean? And so obviously it wouldn't, which means that it's subjective. It's the same for crypto. So not only is it a bad intellectual argument, it also has nothing to do with the Howey test. But here they are making the same nonsense claim here. They wrote the following: real estate has inherent value, whereas a crypto token will generate no profit absent an ecosystem that drives demand, end quote. The SEC references the Howey test, a legal criteria often cited to determine whether a transaction counts as an investment contract or not, to help prove its point. According to the Howey test, an investment contract is a contract, transaction, or scheme whereby a person invests his money in a common enterprise and is led to expect profits solely from the efforts of the promoter or a third party. And so that's correct. Where in that does it say that there must be or must not be inherent value? It doesn't. But here they're arguing this. Here's a quote from the SEC. Any suggestion that the potential utility of some of the assets somehow changes the analysis is wrong. The investment contracts in Howey involve the sale of an asset, orange groves. Other tangible assets sold as part of investment contracts include beavers, whiskey, caskets, and chinchillas, assets with inherent value. Crypto assets are unlike the tangible assets sold in those cases, end quote. And again, I don't want to go too far off the rails here in that. I've documented on the channel in more than one video my stance on the idea of there being or not being inherent value when it comes to crypto assets here. But it goes much deeper than that. It's subjective, so it can't be an attribute that's applied to those things if humans can have opinions and disagree on whether or not that there is value or isn't value. It doesn't make it's an incoherent argument. But that's what the SEC's arguing. So on an intellectual level, they're way off the rails there too. And then on the embodiment theory, and this was rather delightful, there's an attorney named Mike Selig, and he wrote the following a couple days ago. He said, SEC's response to Coinbase's motion for judgment on the pleadings argues that crypto assets have no innate or inherent value, but embody some underlying value of an investment contract. It follows that an asset may at some point no longer embody this value, and we're back to 2018. So folks, that's interesting. Think about that. And I hadn't heard it quite articulated this way, which is why I just thought, wow, that's an excellent illustration. Because again, what are they arguing? That there's no inherent value. So which is the same thing as saying there's no intrinsic value in cryptocurrencies here. But then what do they also say out the other side of their stupid little mouth? That it does, quote, embody some underlying value. The asset itself, remember the embodiment theory in the SEC v. Ripple case? XRP embodies that? Whoa, how does it embody it? I thought there was nothing inherent here. What are you talking about? And then and I'd never seen anybody quite word it like that. And I was just like, yes, exactly. That's a brilliant way to word it. And then he said, SEC theory that all transactions in a token are securities because the token embodies the value of a security is unusual. Commodities sold in a securities transaction aren't carriers that transmit the security status of the transaction onto future transactions under different facts. Yeah, obviously, and that's spot on. So yeah, the SEC they've just been screwing themselves. It's fantastic. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it because these are awful humans. Little ass hat pricks. Here's a headline from the Daily Hodl. FTX's insurance fund was an arbitrary made-up number, according to co-founder Gary Wang. I'll get to that. There's also, what else did I pull up here? Here's a headline from CoinDesk. Gary Wang, Caroline Ellison, looking at day 5 of Sam Bankman-Fried's trial. And then I got some stuff specific. And actually, what I found to be most interesting is some of the stuff from Caroline Ellison. Now, and also worth mentioning, this is just as a friendly reminder here. Gary Wang and Caroline Ellison, they both accepted plea deals from the government. And I know that Caroline Ellison, she was actually facing, if convicted on everything, she was facing up to 110 years behind bars. And now we don't know what's going to happen, not at this particular point in time, and in theory she could see no time, although I don't think that's probable. But she got this deal. She's just speaking out against scam, bankman, fraud. Gary is doing the same thing here. And the stuff that they're saying, it's outrageous. It's just as bad as you might imagine it would be, knowing that they were literally using customer funds for everything under the sun, for, political contributions, real estate, just their lavish lifestyles, all that crap. So let me jump into this. Yeah, I think this is where I want to start, from CoinDesk. Gary Wang, Caroline Ellison, looking at day 5 of Sam Bankman-Fried's trial. This is some crazy stuff. Check this out. FTX co-founder and former chief technology officer Gary Wang began testifying in earnest last Friday in Sam Bankman-Fried's trial. FTX's insurance fund, and this is outrageous, you just got to listen to this. FTX's insurance fund was calculated by taking the total volume of trades over the past 24 hours, multiplying that by a random number that's around 7,500, and dividing that figure by 1 billion. The prosecutor asked if the number had anything to do with the actual number in the insurance fund, to which the answer obviously was no. So they just completely fabricated this thing. That's how sloppy and ridiculous they were. They're just like, well, these are not brilliant people. These are not masterminds. These are incompetent idiots. And they're obviously also terrible people, because what they were literally doing is taking the funds of their customers, FTX, and then doing all sorts of, like I just said a minute ago, buying outrageously expensive real estate. They were, literally taking millions and millions and millions of dollars. In fact, I'm not going to read this article. It's an old article from December of last year. I was just reading through some of the older stuff before I recorded the video here. It was December 15th, 2022. Here you go. Sam Bankman-Fried donated over $40 million in the 2022 election cycle. Where did it go? And so if you had your funds, your hard-earned money in FTX, it went to political contributions, which you might not necessarily agree with, but that's what happened. These are terrible people. They deserve to be, frankly, all of them should be behind bars for the rest of their lives as far as I'm concerned. But plea deals are plea deals, and they're trying to take down the kingpin, which is scam bankman fraud, so I get it. That's just how stuff goes. But anyway, piece continues. FTX customer balances were approximately equal to what was in the company's hot wallets, except there was an Alameda sub-account with a balance around minus $8 billion that was excluded from the list of customer balances. And of course, I'll just remind you, Alameda was basically the investment arm of the same firm, like a sister company, if you will. Then they wrote, in hindsight, we knew this, but FTX and Bankman-Fried were tweeting that FTX was fully liquid and funded after CoinDesk reported on the balance sheet, even while FTX ran out of funds to honor withdrawal requests. FTX was not fine and assets were not fine because FTX did not have enough assets for customer withdrawals, Wang said. The defense began cross-examining Wang on Friday, but Judge Lewis Kaplan cut attorney Christian Everdell off a few minutes prior to the scheduled end time after yet again warning the lawyer about repeating questions that have already been answered. Tuesday should see Everdell and his team complete the cross-examination. Defense attorneys may try to poke holes in Wang's assertions that Bankman-Fried directed or controlled a lot of what happened with Alameda's use of FTX customer funds. Okay, but let's get into some stuff from Caroline Ellison. So here's a piece also from CoinDesk. Caroline Ellison, former CEO of Alameda Research, testified that she committed fraud at the direction of her ex-boyfriend and former colleague, FTX exchange founder Sam Bankman-Fried. Ellison, 28, is the government's highly anticipated star witness in the 6-week trial of Bankman-Fried. She was the CEO of Alameda Research. The hedge fund prosecutors say stole billions of dollars from customers of its sister company, the cryptocurrency exchange FTX. Prosecutors began their questioning of Ellison by asking her if she committed crimes, and if so, who she committed them with. Ellison, who pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy charges last year, said she had, and that she had committed them at the direction of Bankman-Fried. I sent balance sheets at the direction of Sam that made Alameda's balances look less risky to investors, she said, also testifying Alameda had taken funds from FTX to make its own investments. Yeah, so I'll just pause a note here. This is crippling to scam Bankman fraud. So we'll see how this all shakes out here. But you understand, like, you can see transactionally when money did what. So that in conjunction with these obviously true and correct claims, you put it together. I mean, you have a full and complete picture of exactly how this stuff went down. And again, so I think she's awful as well. But SBF is in a lot of trouble here. Piece continues. I sent balance sheets at the direction of Sam that made Alameda's balances look less risky to investors. Her proximity to Bankman-Fried's business and personal lives is almost certain to give the jury its closest look yet at the decision-making that led to FTX's epic collapse last November. She has been cooperating with the government since at least December, when she pleaded guilty to an array of financial crimes stemming from her time at Alameda. Ellison also spoke about Alameda's borrowing FTX customers' funds. Bankman-Fried said to use FTX funds, but to keep money on FTX to meet customer withdrawal requests, she said. And so, folks, that's the crux of the matter right there. As we've known this for almost a whole year now. That's literally what happened. Have enough so that withdrawals can be covered, but of course, once it was discovered that FTX wasn't good for it, a bank run kicked in. And they didn't have enough funds to give out to everybody because they took customers' money. Anyway, piece continues. A lot of this money went to loans made to members of Bankman-Fried's inner circle, with funds going toward investment in political donations, Ellison said. According to Ellison, Bankman-Fried thought the political donation strategy was highly effective, and that's a quote, offering very high returns in terms of political influence at a modest cost. But I didn't feel good about it, she said, of the loans made to insiders. It might look like Alameda sort of funneling money to FTX executives. As for her on and off romantic relationship with Bankman-Fried, Ellison said it created some awkward situations. Yeah, I'll bet it did. Ellison testified that she reported to Bankman-Fried even after being appointed CEO of Alameda Research, despite the appearance that Bankman-Fried was stepping back from the hedge fund he started to focus on running the FTX exchange. I would always ultimately defer to Sam, she testified. She said she had no equity in Alameda despite asking for it. Bankman-Fried decided it would be too complicated and didn't make sense for her to get a stake in the hedge fund, though she did have a sliver of equity in FTX. He thought it was important to separate Alameda and FTX more optically, Ellison said of Bankman-Fried. Ellison also spoke about the essentially unlimited line of credit Alameda had at FTX. Bankman-Fried was the one who set up these systems, she said. A big part of Ellison's testimony focused on Bankman-Fried's desire to secure loans for Alameda. Sam was directing us to borrow as much money as possible, she said. This is something he talked about a lot. Her testimony shed new light on why FTX's exchange token, FTT, made up such a large portion of the Alameda balance sheet to CoinDesk. CoinDesk obtained last November, an award-winning scoop that set off the unraveling of Bankman-Fried's empire. And so, folks, FTT token as collateral, which, you know, what's it really worth? what was it really worth even at the time here? And it's their token that they control. And then what types of loans were they getting as a result? Not good. Not good. Sam had said that he wanted to buy more FTT because he didn't want to put any of our loans in danger, Ellison said Tuesday. It was a little potentially misleading to put the FTT tokens on the balance sheet. And by the way, for those of you that care to look at your screen, look at this beautiful sketch. Beautiful sketch. It's so lifelike. This is a sketch of Caroline Ellison testifying in court. Oh, spitting image of her. It looks just like her. You know what? They might as well have hired me. I could have drawn a damn stick figure that looks as convincing. I don't know. I got a kick out of it. I'm just saying, dude. And then I'm not sure. I think it was set in this article. Maybe it was. Let me scroll if I can find it. I don't need to cover. Those are the biggest parts of it. If it's not covered here, well, that's okay. I already mentioned it earlier in the video, but I was going to see if I could find the exact quote. But yes, according to Caroline Ellison, Sam Bankman-Fried actually thought that he could be president of the United States of America. He thought, and he attributed, from what I'd read, a 5% odds of that actually happening. Oh my God. So, I don't see him being president of the United States ever. I can't even imagine that. But I can see him behind bars for the rest of his life. That sounds pretty good. That sounds a lot better than him being president of anything, frankly. But isn't that outrageous? It just goes to show like some of the mindset here. Like the ego of this, and he just thought he could do whatever. He's just a disgusting, awful person, hiding behind this, altruism. Oh yes, well, he even admitted after the collapse of FTX that it was basically a facade. It sounded nice, and you could pitch it to people. Well, look at what we're doing, effective altruism, blah 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 blah. But meanwhile, he's just a thieving, cucumber-eating son of a bitch. Them's the breaks. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.